This is the second day of this July 2026 7-day session. And we'll resume reading from yesterday's text, a book called Zen Essence. It's an anthology of teachings of Chinese masters and it's translated by Thomas Cleary. This is a master's on Yang, lived in the 900s. In China, of course, these are all Chinese masters. Someone asked Fan Yang, what is the work of a teaching master? Fan Yang replied, impersonally guiding those with affinity. Impersonally. Maybe you could say without attachment, any kind of attachment, ordinary conventional attachment, but being a vessel, service to those with affinity. This word affinity I've come to appreciate more and more over the years. It's another word for karma, karmic affinity. But karma is so overused and it's so mysterious, complicated. We associate with people, our association, our coming into association with people reflects an affinity. Our having contact with anyone reflects an affinity. When you consider the billions of people in the world, it's really a very significant thing when we have these associations or contacts with people. The most obvious is the parent-child relationship. That's considered the deepest affinity. Siblings. Don't forget siblings. And then moving outward to other relatives, people at work, friends, family, teacher, student. This reflects an affinity. And it used to disturbed me when I heard about teacher misconduct, and even beyond that, that there are students who will stay with a teacher knowing he has engaged in a pattern, not just a one slip up, but a pattern of misconduct. We know that this happens in Zen, it happens in Tibetan Buddhism, it happens in religion, period, where there's misconduct. alcohol, drugs. But then that it becomes something you can just put aside when you realize that a teacher who stays with, a student who stays with a teacher, knowing that has a pattern of misconduct, you can just chalk it up to affinity. There's some kind of affinity. We don't know why. Make no sense. Well, the student might say, well, yes, I know he's done a lot of damage, but I think he's a good teacher. Yeah, that's one point of view. If you can overlook this misconduct, serious misconduct. We stay with a teacher because we have an affinity that hasn't ended yet, hasn't exhausted itself. We stay with a spouse because of very deep affinity that hasn't exhausted itself yet. I assisted Roshi Kaplo in quite a few weddings that he performed at Arnold Park. And to begin each wedding, to welcome the guests who know nothing about Zen or Buddhism, he would just mention a few of the words that are in the ceremony: Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, Karma. And I had thought that was a good way to include these people who don't know what their friend or their son or daughter are doing there. Just a little quick thumbnail sketch of some Buddhist vocabulary. And once at a wedding, before we got into the ceremony proper, he was doing this. He was going through the different words, just 4, 5, 6 of them. And then he came to karma. And he said, Jennifer, Jason, you've come here today, you're here to get married because of your karma with one another. You could substitute affinity, your karmic affinity with one another. He said, and when that karma is exhausted, you'll separate. The most benign, detached way, and you could almost feel the wedding guests recoiling. Hold on, wait a minute. This is supposed to be forever. But we know it often isn't forever. And we don't need to make a moral issue of divorce, much less judgmental. I mean, there can be, of course, problems on both sides, but in the end, it's that the affinity has ended. Just a way, it's a vocabulary. They got divorced because now the karma that brought them together, the affinity they had, has exhausted itself. It's that itself. I mentioned the word Fanyan here uses the word impersonally. It takes all the baggage out of it. If we just say, all right, we stay with someone as long as, our being with a person, or with neighbors, next door neighbors, there's an affinity. And it can really enrich our sense of what most people would see as ordinary, banal. That neighbor, that next door neighbor, who we may feel we have little in common with at all, still there is some affinity. The Japanese have a saying, there are no accidents. person, the cashier at the supermarket counter where we set our groceries down, to the fact that we're interfacing with that person means there is some affinity. Not a lot, but some. I suppose you could try to remind yourself of these things, consciously remind yourself of these, the affinity behind all these seemingly chance contacts and associations. But I think it's something that just you come to appreciate without thinking about it. That person is not just a stranger or just someone, some kind of glancing connection. I mean, it is, but it's also the effect of a previous cause. That's what karma means. That's what affinity means. Every once in a while, when I'm getting into my car at the parking lot, they say big parking lot, and just as I'm opening the door to the car, the driver to the car next to me, 2 or 3 feet away, is about to open the door of her car. And once I said, what are the chances, eh? And it's kind of fun to see their response. Again, it's not something I think in Zen we wouldn't go around kind of consciously trying to frame these different contacts and associations as anything special, but I think it grows from within, especially through long practice. You come to see these people as something special, really. I once heard the Japanese also say, even the brushing of sleeves in a crowded marketplace means that there has been something before. Work of a teacher. The Buddha reportedly said the strength of a spiritual teacher is his patience. I think it really doesn't reflect the reality. I don't feel, when I've been working with a student for years and years and years who's, let's say, still working on her first koan, I don't see it as patience, because once you know that the student has everything she or he needs, is whole and complete, you're not just, come on, be patient here, I don't know how much longer my patience can last. It's nothing like, there's no patience involved. Recognition that the peach has to ripen further before it falls from the tree. I want it to fall from the tree sooner rather than later, for the student's sake. But, no. I'm not contradicting the Buddha, I just wonder about the translation. I'm just looking more deeply at the word patience. But I remember being on the other side of that, and feeling grateful to Roshi Kapur for his patience with me. So I understand what's involved. The student's original nature isn't going anywhere. You don't have to wait for that. It's right there, full display in front of the teacher. Here's another one by this master Fan Yang. When will you ever stop competing? Before you realize it, the scenery of spring has turned to autumn, the leaves fall, the geese migrate, the frost gradually grows colder. Clothed and shod, what more do you seek? Shod, unusual, kind of old-fashioned, unusual word. Shod just means with shoes, having shoes. You're clothed and shod, what more do you seek? Interesting word, competing. Always, when it doesn't, I don't think it, the way I understand that in terms of, let's say sashimi, let's stay with sashimi, is comparing oneself to others. That is a crippling element in practice, is to fall into comparing oneself to others. Common, I remember doing it. Oh, they say she got to her koan, I haven't yet, or she's this, or he is that, but it is, really spoils one's practice. And it's a sign of real advancement when we stop thinking about others as they compare to us. As long as we're doing that, as long as we're thinking of self and other, then we have further to go. Here's another one. When you know the mind, mind is Buddha. When you don't know it, it is the devil. Devil and Buddha are products of one mind. Buddha is real, the devil is madness. So we can render that as when you have realized this one mind, realize that which is the essence of all of us. If you don't know it, if you haven't realized, it is or can be diabolical, the way it can torment us. And we know how it torments us. We find that in sashimi. Starts with any kind of, well, you mentioned envy, comparing oneself, a sense of division, of otherness. Let's consider makyo. Makyo, most of you know, strictly speaking, makyo are hallucinations that most commonly occur during sesshin, with all the intense hours of sitting we're doing. We can have visual makyo or auditory makyo. makyo I had when I was working on my first koan was just moments of just a few seconds of this glittering demon, a demon with glittering eyes. And it just sent chills down my spine. And then it passed. Through experience in practice, especially sesshin practice, we have the presence of mind to see it for what it is. It's just some kind of goofy thing that happens in the mind, where we see a threat where there is no threat, a menace where there is no menace, opposition where there is no opposition. To be enmeshed in a makyo like that is a real trial, a real test of faith. But then over time you get to spot them. The length of time before you catch yourself, before you realize it, gets less and less. Oh yeah, it's just a hallucination, just a makyo. In fact, the word makyo, I seem to remember, it's a translation. The translation of it in English is devilish phenomena. It is phenomena that arise during sitting that bedevil us. And it doesn't have to just be frightening things. Any number of things that we're visited by. But usually it means hallucinations. Then he says, devil and Buddha are products of one mind. There is only one mind, so whatever phenomena arise has to be just this one mind. One of the, maybe the most bedeviling phenomenon that can come to us in sesshin is doubt. It's in Buddhism, more the early Buddhism, they're considered to be 5 hindrances, 5 major hindrances. The first 2 are desire and aversion. It is our likes and our dislikes. Major hindrance, getting caught in them. I think the 3rd and the 4th are gain, sense of gain and loss. I may be wrong about that. But anyway, the 5th is the worst, because it's doubt. The others, we can keep practicing earnestly when we notice ourselves getting attached to what we want and what we don't want in the others. But doubt has the possibility of undermining our effort, turning us away from practice. Someone once asked the great Chinese master Lin Chi, or Rinzai, what is Mara? Mara is just the personification of evil. It's something we don't use much in Zen, but in popular Buddhism, maybe more uneducated, Mara is a personification, sort of a Buddhist Satan or devil, or it can be used by very educated people as a metaphor of evil. But Lin Chi was asked, what is Mara? And he said, a moment of doubt in your heart is Mara. That is, doubting the practice, fundamentally. Yes, doubting yourself, doubting the teacher, but fundamentally doubting your practice. Has it ever been anyone to go through a 7-day session who hasn't had to contend with doubt? Roshi Kappa once confided to me that at Hoshinji, when he was still working on Mo, he was face to face with a major doubt about Zen, about practice himself, and so much so that he was headed for the exit. He said he got to the monastery gate, and then somehow a stiff wind, cold wind in the winter shook him out of that, and well, the rest is history. Last night we lost someone from Sesshin. Just left a note saying, this is too hard, can't do this. Thank you, goodbye. It's doubt. Doubt getting the better of one. The monitors and I know that if you can just, people who are tempted to leave Sesshin, if you could just get them to stay just another block of sitting, maybe another round, and just stay with it, because we know through experience that the doubt will pass if you can just persevere. It's a thought. A doubt is a thought, nothing more. And through all this sitting, no thought can survive long with that. Is another by the same master. Few people believe their inherent mind is Buddha. Most will not take this seriously and therefore are cramped. They are wrapped up in illusions, cravings, resentments, and other afflictions, all because they love the cave of ignorance. It's quite an indictment. Love the cave of ignorance. Preferring the sense of security comes from playing, not crashing into the Zendo. Preferring the sense of the false sense of security that comes with the known or what we think we know. The familiar, the known and familiar. This first sentence, few people believe their inherent mind is Buddha. Well, a lot of people would deny that. They would say, well, yeah, I believe it. Seems like a wonderful thing to believe in, but what about their actions? How faith shows itself in practice. We may tell ourselves that we have full faith in this original nature, this original mind. But I think I was saying yesterday, when we get into a state of real vulnerability in sesshin, and we notice cracks open up in that. And that's where, those cracks is where the doubts start to come up like weeds in a sidewalk or a driveway. He says, most will not take this seriously and therefore are cramped. What an odd translation, cramped. Well, we can say, don't take it seriously and therefore they are bound, they are limited, they're tethered to their sense of self. They're wrapped up in illusions, cravings, resentments, and other afflictions. You have to ask, what do you have faith in more? What is your faith? In your thoughts and feelings, or the practice you're working on? It's really a lot of what it comes down to. If you have your primary faith is in the practice you're working on, which means that which is beyond thought, if that's where your faith is, then your thoughts and feelings are be of no real threat, no real problem. Luckily, faith is something that grows. It grows. You may flounder and struggle in early sessions because of less than complete faith. But then if you can get back to them and sit more, and of course sit between sessions, sit at home every day, then your faith deepens, it grows, it swells, it expands, and then practice gets easier because you stop believing in your thoughts. You stop attending to your thoughts. Chinese master said, it does not enter through thought. If you notice that your thoughts in the mind, you're going the wrong way, you're in the wrong place. Thoughts come up, of course. Thoughts arise unbidden. They float up all the time. This is the function of a living brain, is to generate some level of thought activity. So we got to make peace with thoughts floating up all the time. But how long do we cling to them is the question. How long do we dwell in our thoughts? And let's be clear, thoughts aren't just, thoughts mean, pretty much always mean, their thoughts are attached to sense of self. If we really pay attention to our thoughts, it's almost always an I in the middle of them, or a my. Even the thought, my practice, has the my, the self, in the middle of it. So just about everything is thoughts. And that's what we have to learn. It takes most of us a long time to learn to spot those thoughts. That's the first thing. Notice them. Notice when the mind is on thoughts, and then redirect. Bring them back to the koan, the practice you're working on. Drop it. And that, again, that also takes time. We're so used to living in our thoughts that it's just easy to stay there and just keep chewing on our thoughts as they come up. And then it can take a while before we realize there's nothing for us there. Yes, there's a place for thinking through problems, and we're facing a problem, a practical problem. We have to think through the solution to the problem. But that's not sesshin. That's not practice. Thoughts are of no use in practice. of sutras are still not enough. When you have realized understanding, even one word is already too much. Zen is communicated personally through mental recognition. It is not handed on directly by written words. This is why one of our oldest sesshin guidelines is to do no reading. Reading can be a great entry to practice. Many of us, I'm sure, it's true for me, and I know many others, who come to Zen practice through reading about Zen or the Dharma, but that's not our business in sesshin. Or as Roshi Kappa used to say, in Zen we read ourselves. For centuries, Zen has been known as that school of the Dharma. It is beyond words, the ultimate. It is the school of direct experience. There's a story here about, well, I'll just read it. Once there was a Zen elder who didn't talk to his group at all during a retreat. You know, there is, I know I've read about at least one teacher, a Japanese teacher, who insists that there's no place for teishos or talks, there's no place for doksan, there's no place for the stick, there's no place for chanting. And evidently there are some people who are drawn to that kind of stripped down teaching. But then 99% of teachers throughout history have had these secondary practices like talks and doksan and chanting and so forth. But here's one, much farther back than the one I know about of this century, or last century. Once there was a Zen elder who didn't talk to his group at all during a retreat. One member of the group said, "This way, I've wasted the whole retreat. I don't expect the teacher to explain Buddhism to me, but it would be nice at least to hear the two words, absolute truth." So this teacher heard of this complaint, and he said, "Don't be so quick to complain. There's not even a single word to say about absolute truth." Then when he had said this, he gnashed his teeth and said, "It was pointless to even say even that." And then here's the epilogue. In the next room was another teacher who overheard this and said, "A fine pot of soup befouled by 2 rat droppings." So much in the style of Zen, this recognition that words, we have to get beyond words. They have their place, but ultimately, for the ultimate, we have to get beyond them. And that's what all koans are teaching, not to be snared in words. speaking of rats, another Roshi Capital story bubbles up where he told me he was doing yaza, late night sitting during sesshin. It was in the middle of the night, and he found himself sitting next to another sesshin participant, a Japanese monk, and felt very much supported, fortified with this monk, two of them sitting up in the dead of night, and in the beam of the zendo, high above them, there were some rats skittering, or a rat skittering along there. And he learned after sesshin that sound of the rat scurrying on the beam brought the monk to awakening. So if you need another reason to do late night sitting, our time is up. We'll stop now and recite the 4 vows.